Welcome back to part 2 of Next on the Tee. We're not done yet. Coming up, more stories, more insight, and more reasons to love this game. Let's dive right back in. Part 2 starts now, right here on Next on the Tee, where golf legends live and your game gets better.
Hey, Next on the Tee Nation, thank you so much for coming back and pressing play on part 2 of this episode, featuring my conversation with Paul Ollinger. Now, Paul is a stand-up comedian, but he has a fantastic background. He's a former VP of sales for Facebook and decided, you know what? That's not my passion. My passion is being a stand-up comic. I want to go ahead and put myself into that world and fully submerge myself and see what I can do. I love the fact that he put himself out there to follow his passion and his dream, and he has done a fantastic job of doing that. He is also the host of the Reasonably Happy podcast. If you haven't checked that out, please go out there on your favorite podcast app and do so. Paul is so much fun in this segment of the show. I really enjoyed getting to know a little bit about him and hearing his stories about how he chucked all of that to become a comedian, what it was like putting himself on the line the first time he got up in front of a crowd to do his stand-up routines. It's also interesting learning how he defines happiness. And then he's got a really funny story about how back during the pandemic, toilet paper became a social barometer. You're going to love to hear that one as well. So, folks, let Paul entertain you for the next 30 minutes or so. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Paul Ollinger. Okay, but before we get into all of that, I want to start off by reminding you about our wonderful friends over at 2 Under. 2 Under men's performance briefs are the unofficial underwear of the PGA, Ryder Cup, and President's Cup teams, and are sold in over 3,000 golf pro shops and golf specialty retailers nationwide. Ricky Fowler is their global ambassador, and over 50 other PGA, Korn Ferry, and Champions Tour players wear them. Just to mention a few, they are David Toms, Jerry Kelly, Justin Thomas, William McGirt, Scott McCarron, and Chris DeMarco. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management, delivering maximum comfort from the tee box to the boardroom to the bedroom. Go to 2under.com to check out the bundle specials that offer substantial discounts for being a Next on the Tee listener. That's the number 2, UNDR.com. 2 Under, performance in your pants.
Sure, this is golf, but so is this, and this, and this is definitely golf, and so is this. Hey, that's not golf. Oh wait, yeah it is. And no matter what your golf is, you're gonna need a store. No, a superstore. A place to get fit for a new club and walk out with it the same day. A place to find the perfect fit. A place to do whatever this is, because this is golf, and this is golf's superstore.
Okay, now joining me is another guy who makes his Next on the Tee debut with me this week, and that is comedian and host of the Reasonably Happy podcast, Paul Ollinger. Paul has also written a book also titled Reasonably Happy, Essays on Money, Work, and the Other Things That Piss Me Off. You can find links to buy that book on his site, paulollinger.com. Ollinger is the spelling of his last name. You can also get it out on Amazon. Prior to all of that, Paul was the VP of sales for Facebook, and I can't tell you how great it is that I get to spend some time with him this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Paul, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. Sorry, my mic was muted there, and I jumped in with gusto.
No worries. All right, Paul, so I want to start off by having you take me back, because you've been doing stand-up comedy for a while now. You also give financial advice. Like I mentioned in your intro, you've been the VP of sales at Facebook, and now you've written this book and are the host of the Reasonably Happy podcast. Connect all those dots for me.
Yeah, I obviously need to focus more. This is the same problem I have on the tee. You know, my mind's going a million different directions. The pro at my club told me, see ball, hit ball. But what I do is see ball, think about my ex-girlfriend, hope her husband makes less money than I do, worry about what I said to Mr. and Mrs. Fry at the North Springs movie theater in 1984. Stuff like that. That's why my index went up 3 strokes in the last month.
All right. So what got you to make the leap?
So here's the deal. So I I went to business school 26 years ago because I wanted to make more money. And then one night I told jokes at a talent show, just made fun of my friends. And this giant wave of laughter convinced me that what I was born to do was to be a stand-up comedian. But I had borrowed $80,000 in 1996 to get that MBA. So I had to go get a job, and I got a job in the digital media business and eventually went to work for Yahoo. Paid off my student loans, went to LA to chase my comedy dream. Did that for 2 years, had some success, but I got engaged and needed a job. And a buddy of mine that I'd worked with at Yahoo said, "Why don't you join this little company that I'm working with? It's called Facebook." And I said, "Someday that company could be as big as MySpace." And that's the kind of vision I had. And that's why I'm such a successful stand-up comedian today.
Awesome. All right. So, now you're out there as a stand-up comedian. That's
Yeah.
not an easy thing to do. It's not like you just decide to be a comedian one day and you go up there and now all of a sudden you're a smash hit. What was it like for you getting on stage for the first time and trying to make people laugh?
The doing of comedy is the fun part. It's the residual, it's the getting booked, it's the promoting the constant self-promotion on social media, the networking for gigs and stuff. That's the hard part. The comedy is the treat. It's like if you're a pro athlete, game day is what you live for, but the job isn't game day. The job is working out and practicing and practicing and practicing and doing rehab and PT and all that kind of stuff. And comedy's kind of the same way. Like once you get to the club, that's the fun part. The first time I got on stage, I took a comedy class. Most comedy clubs, they're dark during the day, so they're looking for ways to make money while there's not customers in the seats, and so they have comedy classes to fuel the fake dreams in people's heads. All you corporate people who want to do stand-up comedy, go pay $500 to your local comedy club, and they'll tell you ways that you can find funny. But the great part about the comedy thing is, the comedy class is you have a graduation show where everybody brings 10 friends. So you have maybe 100 people in this room. It's a real crowd of very friendly people. They're very supportive. And that's your first show. I think the best thing that can happen to you at your comedy class graduation show is to bomb, and to bomb completely. Because if you do it and it feels terrible, then you can go back and make money as an accountant or whatever else you should be doing with your life. But if you bomb and you still want to be a comedian, then you have the sickness and nothing else can cure you but following your passion.
All right. So what was the most humbling moment you ever had when you were up on stage?
I've never really had terrible moments. I mean, Mike Birbiglia this great comic, Mike Birbiglia, who many of your listeners will know. He talks about how you have to be so delusional as an early comic that you think it goes well when it really doesn't go well. And I had a sufficient amount of delusion to keep doing it all through when I was terrible. Today, we've all had these weird experiences. Like there was one time where there was a guy with paramedics. He was on the floor and there were paramedics over him, tending to some cardiac arrest or something. And the club manager looked at me and goes, "Let's go." I said, "What are you talking about?" "There's a guy having a heart attack." He goes, "It's 7:00. It's showtime. We got a 9 and 11 tonight. We're going." And so that was pretty wild. And there's always something, there's always these stories, because when you get, 400 people packed into a comedy club, life continues to happen. And there's always weird things that go on in the room.
So on the opposite side of that coin, is there a moment on stage where in your mind, boy, I got this crowd?
Yeah, I mean, there's a flow a flow state in comedy that's that you read about. All these sports psychologists talk about flow state, and you're when you're not thinking and you're in the moment and you're doing, you're just doing, and that's the ultimate goal. That's why we do it, is because when you're in that flow state, it's exhilarating, and you're sort of one with the crowd, but you're conducting it. And all this energy is flowing through you, and it's magical. And that is a narcotic experience.
So for our listeners who may feel stuck in their jobs or in their lives, is there a first step that you recommend that they take to becoming reasonably happy and following their dreams? And, hey, let's stop doing this other thing. It's time for you to step out and follow that dream.
Yeah, well, I think really the first thing to do is to take a step back and reflect on everything you have to be grateful for in your life. Like when I left Facebook, I was very fortunate at a very young age to be in a position where I had 100% career flexibility. Now I happen to know from early on that doing stand-up comedy was my dream. And so I left and kind of and went after that. But what I realized before I really started getting after comedy post Facebook, I just kind of didn't work for a while. And it was great for 3 to 6 months to, all the stress from work, no sales quotas over your head. After a decade or more of sales, it's the same thing every 90 days. Hey, here's your number, go hit it. And it's stressed and it's all stressed and it's all, what have you done this quarter kind of thing. And so letting go of that is a really good feeling for a little while. But then I had this experience where I was like, why am I lonely? I have everything I need. I have a cool house. I belong to a great country club. I have nice cars. Why do I feel like a loser? And that's because I didn't have a purpose. It's because I wasn't part of a community at work. And the thing I didn't know before I left Facebook is that work is a lot more than a paycheck. That work, the third rung on Maslow's hierarchy of needs is belongingness. We all need a place to belong in this world. We all need a place where we feel useful, where people appreciate us coming around to contribute to whatever mission or whatever organization you're trying to build.
So how do you define happiness? Is it more subtraction of stress and toxic things in our lives, or does it come from truly going out and being able to pursue whatever your dream is and build those relationships?
Well, what's interesting about happiness is if you go to the thesaurus and you look up happiness, there's all these different words that mean some kind of happiness. Exhilaration, jubilation are some of them, but then there's fulfillment, contentment, uh, harmony, things like that. And so, as I've gotten older, I realized that really what we're looking for is sort of on that other end, the not super exciting and as comedian Dennis Miller used to say, it's not life and Heth's jacuzzi that you're looking for. You're looking for waking up and feeling good about what waits for you in the rest of the day. You want to wake up and feel good about the person beside you. You want to wake up and be grateful that your kids are healthy and that you're not destitute. And so I think one of the things that leads to fulfillment is gratitude, and one of the things that leads to gratitude is mindfulness and being aware of all the great stuff that we have in life. I just got back from Scotland playing golf for the first time with three very good friends, and I played horribly over there. I'm not kidding. I couldn't. It's just one of those things where maybe the look of the course, the kind of messes with your eye or whatever, and you just can't get off the tee very well. But even playing very poorly, I just kept bringing myself back to, okay, I'm not hitting the ball the way I want to, but I'm in Ireland with three of my best friends, or I was in Scotland with three of my best friends. Life is good, and I'm going to enjoy the beautiful scenery and the friendship that I've got for today.
So who are the comedians that make you laugh the hardest?
Oh, they're the middle-aged guys, Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, Gary Gulman. I saw Ricky Gervais at the Beacon Theater here in New York with my wife a month or so ago, and the guy is a genius. And I both really enjoy it, and they blow me away with how much better they are than I am, even after I've been doing this for, I don't know, 14 years or something like that.
In your book, you wrote about something that has always made me wonder as well, and that is, why is it that year after year the folks in Denmark are always the happiest? It's cold and dreary in the winter. Their tax rates are through the roof. But they don't seem to care. They're always the happiest. Why is that?
Well, according to the little book of Hygge, by the guy from the Danish Happiness Institute who I interviewed on my podcast a few years ago, it comes down to being together with people in environments that are very comforting. Not to be political, but he talks a lot about the social safety net that they have in Denmark as a way to reduce kind of existential angst. If you twist your ankle, you're not going to spend $900 on x-rays at the hospital, et cetera. But they also, the fun part of the book is that they get together with their loved ones on a very regular basis. They light candles and they build fires, and they have very pleasing home environments. and they wear cozy sweaters. I think it's probably the cozy sweaters. I think if you're not happy, light some candles and buy some big sweaters. That's going to do it.
Another thing I laughed at in the book was how toilet paper became a social barometer. Talk about our craze around toilet paper during the pandemic and how unimaginative so many of us were.
Oh my, you really read this, didn't you? Thank you. Yeah, it struck me. It struck me. As my insights always come about 90 days after the media cycle has ended. So I'm never going to be the hot guy opining in the New York Times about what's happening. But it occurred to me that you remember the fights, the brawls you saw early in COVID over toilet paper in the Kroger aisle. There's these women beating each other up over a 6-pack of Charmin, and they hadn't even thought to go look to the Kleenex aisle and go, hey, you know what? There are alternatives. What economists call substitute goods. In fact, perfect substitute goods. And there are so many different things you could use to clean yourself that are great alternatives to toilet paper. And then so then I started thinking about, like, toilet paper is a barometer. Like, you'll know how bad things actually are getting when people decide what's an adequate substitute for toilet paper. And if you're looking at tissue, nothing's going wrong. It's just a short-term supply issue. When you start cleaning yourself with stock certificates or hard currency, you'll know that society is collapsing. But until then, chill out, folks. No need to beat each other up in Kroger's aisle 4.
You have a chapter titled Nightmare on the Back Nine. It may or may not be about golf, but talk about what the intent of that chapter is.
I have this recurring nightmare, and I think I bet your listeners have some version of this on their own, whether or not it's golf related. And this nightmare is, I'm trying to tee off, and I'm with my buddies. I don't know exactly who they are, but they're friends, and we're somewhere on the back nine, and I'm trying to peg my tee into the teeing ground there, and the ball keeps falling over. And then I finally get it to stand, and then I set up over the ball, and it falls over. And then I get over it. And I realize I have the wrong club. So I got to go back to my bag and get a different club. And I pull the clubs out, and all the clubs fall all over the place. And I finally get the club, and I put the club back, and I go back to the ball, and I look at my friends, and they're all looking at their feet. And then, I try to swing, but my arms are frozen. And eventually my friends just move on the periphery and move up to their balls. And I'm stuck there on the tee, and I can't hit the ball. And I think it's a dream about powerlessness and the inability to execute on something that should be simple, that we know very well, but and is very familiar, but for some reason when I unable to do it. People have dreams where you're not able to run, or you're not able to fight somebody off or scream to alert somebody that there's danger or something. This is a version of it that I have. But I think the real nightmare isn't the powerlessness. It's knowing that eventually we're going to be shut out of the game, and that the pain of golf isn't, shanking your drive into the lake, or losing 40 yards on your driver as you age. It's being shut out of the game at some point, and we all know that's inevitable.
You were telling me that your index jump, you referred to this earlier on in the show, but your index jump when you got a Jailbird putter, how'd you let that happen?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Here's one of the things. So my wife and I decided 2 years ago that it would be really cool for our kids to go to high school in Manhattan. And as our realtor in Atlanta said, well, that's something you never hear. But we did it. And I lived a half mile down the street from our club in Atlanta. And so I practiced a lot, and I putted a lot, and I played a lot. And we moved up here to the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And it's great, and it's very cool. Not a lot of practice facilities in Central Park. I didn't know that. Make sure you do your research, people, before you move to New York City. I have been going to 5-iron golf more recently, though, because like 6 months ago, my son, who's now 16, who in Atlanta I couldn't pay to pick up a club, we live from right next to this beautiful practice facility, instructional facility. There's great youth programs, all this. He wasn't interested. We moved to New York. He's like, I think I want to play golf. I'm like, great timing. Excellent timing. Now we're going to 5-iron golf. And I'm like, okay, well, look, it's what we got. It's fun. It's cool. He likes the video aspect of it. Anyway, it's something for us to do together.
And you've played some of the great courses in and around the city of Atlanta: Atlanta Country Club, Atlanta Athletic Club, Cherokee, which is impossible to play, Capital City. Talk about some of the great places you've had an opportunity to tee it up at.
Well, not more, as importantly, and yes, I've been blessed to be able to play all those golf courses, but what I was referring to is that I've done stand-up comedy shows at all those clubs. And so over the last 4 years, I've headlined and or produced 40 shows at country clubs all over the Southeast, including some of these top clubs. Last week we were at Dunwoody Country Club. A comedian from Atlanta named Matthew, who lives here in New York City now, Matthew Broussard, who's a brilliant guy. We had a great fun time at Dunwoody Country Club, and I headlined a club up here on Long Island called North Hempstead Country Club, which I believe is a Tillinghast course. And by the way, when you move up here and you're not really familiar, you learn real quickly that there's a couple hundred Donald Ross Tillinghast courses. It's unbelievable how much good golf is in this area.
And indeed. And a lot of the guys that I have come on this show are up in the Met section, and I hear all about it. You're talking about some of the greatest places especially as you mentioned on Long Island, that are right across the street from one another.
Yeah,
it's
you got
unbelievable.
Deepdale. What's crazy, like if you drive up Westchester, you're like, you can see on your GPS, you can see golf course on your right. And if I have an accident on one of these Westchester highways, this is going to be the reason, is because you're like scrolling over, go like, what's that? You're like, oh, that's Quaker Ridge. Oh, I know that course is supposed to be amazing. And then you go up a little further and you're like, what's this one on the left? Oh, that's Winged Foot. My God. It's like crazy how much good golf is up here.
Yes. All right. So a couple more before I let you go, Paul. And, when you put this book together, happiness is a key, something that we're all looking for. What is it that you want people to walk away with when they go out and read this book?
I want people to laugh and see that imperfection is okay. That's why the name of the podcast and the book is Reasonably Happy. We're all trying really hard to do our best, and nobody is harder on us than we are on ourselves. And so these essays are from my Substack, words.paulollinger.com, and I've collected them. The reason I write this is basically using often lessons from my own life as places where I've messed up, overreacted, and just kind of reflect on them to say, look, we're all imperfect, we're all doing our best, and even if you get a couple of bogeys or double bogeys on your scorecard, you still had a great opportunity to be out there outside with your friends, and we should focus on that part of life.
So what's next for you? Where can our listeners go check out your show?
I'll be at the Denver Comedy Lounge October 17th and 18th. And I've got a couple of other things that I should know right off the bat, but I have forgotten. I'll be at Capital City Country Club October 23rd with Derek Stroop. So if you're a Capital City member, get your tickets or ask one of your Capital City member friends to bring you to the show.
Absolutely. How else can our listeners stay up to date with the great things you're doing, whether it's online or it's on social media?
Best place to get me is on Substack. It's words.paulollinger.com. Paul Ollinger is Paul, Ollinger. And if you don't know how to spell Paul, you're probably not going to enjoy what I write.
Paul, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day to come and be a part of this show. You're fantastic, my friend. I hope I get the privilege of catching up with you again before too long.
Chris, I'd love it. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Take care, Paul. All the best to you and your family.
Thanks. You too.
That's Paul Ollinger. Again, Ollinger. PaulOllinger.com is where you can find him online. Words@PaulOllinger.com is where you're going to find him on Substack. And again, folks, it is a wonderful read. The book is titled Reasonably Happy, Essays on Money, Work, and the Other Things That Piss Me Off. I can't recommend it highly enough. Quick read, funny read. You're really going to enjoy. You'll get through it in just a very short period of time. It's something that's going to make you laugh out loud, and that's definitely something we can all use more of. Go check him out if you happen to be in the area. Again, he said he's going to be up at the Denver Comedy Lounge, October 17 and 18, at Capital City on October the 23rd. Hopefully sometime in between there or maybe shortly thereafter, we'll get him back on the show. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on this edition of Next on the Tee. I want to send out my sincere thanks again to Debbie O'Connell, Hank Gola, and Paul Ollinger for joining me this week. Now, scheduled to join me next week are the great Ron Cyrack will be back. He was so fantastic. He just joined me not all that long ago, and he was so great. I wanted to get him back on the show again as soon as I could. Golf Magazine Top 100 instructor Jeff Smith. Speaking of guys who are great, Jeff will make his 4th appearance with me on the show. He is always so much fun when he is a part of the show. And then we'll round it out with PGA professional David Eby making his next On the Tee debut. So, folks, it's going to be a great one. I hope you'll come back and join us as well. As always, I want to end the show by thanking our friends again over at the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review for hosting this show on their site. Folks, for coverage of everything going on in Western Pennsylvania, including your favorite sports, go to triblive.com, and you can find this show by then clicking on the sports section tab, and you're going to see the most recent episode front and center for you right there on the homepage of the sports section. And you can click on sports and then podcast network. You'll see the Next on the Tee logo. Click on that. And many of the most recent episodes from this season are right there for you as well. You can also find this show pretty much anywhere you get your podcast content. As you know, we're out there on Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, golfnewsnet.com. And always a great thank you to the folks over at Good Pods for making this show one of their recommended podcasts. So please download their free app and stream your favorite podcast right there on your favorite device. But like I say, each and every week, biggest thanks go out to each and every one of you for pressing play, making Next on the Tee a part of your weekly golf content, and being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts. I appreciate everybody so very much. Until next time, hit 'em straight, my friends.
Thanks for joining Chris again this week on Next on the Tee. We hope you enjoyed the conversations as much as we did. Please share the show with your golf buddies and be sure to follow it on TribLive or your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Thanks for pressing play and being part of the journey. We'll see you next week, right here, where the best minds in golf share their stories.